Before you blame yourself again, pause. Before you replay every word you said, every choice you made, every moment you think you should have handled differently, pause. Because pain has a way of pulling us back into the same room over and over again. The same conversation, the same ending, the same question. What did I do wrong? And maybe that question's been following you for a long time. Maybe you asked it after someone left, after someone changed, after someone stopped choosing you the way you kept choosing them. Maybe you asked it when the silence got too loud, when the apology just never came, and when the explanation was missing. When you were left with pieces of a story you had to finish by yourself. And when you did not know what else to do with the pain, you turned it inward. You made yourself the reason. You told yourself maybe you were too much. Maybe you needed too much. Maybe you said the wrong thing. And maybe you should have been quieter, softer, easier, less affected, less honest, less you. And maybe blaming yourself felt like control. Because if it was your fault, then maybe you could fix it, right? If it was your fault, then maybe you could become different enough to prevent it from happening again. If it was your fault, then maybe the pain had a reason. And sometimes a reason feels safer than grief. Sometimes self-blame feels safer than accepting that someone did not choose you well. Sometimes it feels easier to punish yourself than to admit that you were hurt by something you could not control. But not everything that hurt you was caused by you. Not every silence was your failure. Not every rejection was proof that something was missing in you. And not every ending means you were hard to love. Sometimes people don't know how to love you the right way. Sometimes people leave rooms they did not have the courage to be honest in. Sometimes people take what you offer and still do not know how to value it. Or you. Sometimes you can give your best, you can give your all, and still not get what you need. And that does not make your best worthless. It makes the situation painful. There's a difference. You're allowed to take responsibility for what belongs to you without carrying the entire weight of what happened. I mean, it's not all your fault. You're allowed to learn without turning the lesson into a life sentence. And you're allowed to look back and say, I see what I did not know then, without using that awareness as a weapon against yourself. Because the version of you who stayed, the version of you who hoped, the version of you who kept trying was not stupid, was not weak, was not broken. That version of you was trying to survive with the understanding, the strength, and safety they had at the time. Maybe you stayed because hope still felt alive. Maybe you stayed because you were waiting for the person you loved to become safe to be around again. Maybe you stayed, because leaving felt like confirming the fear that you were not ready to face. Maybe you stayed because you had already lost so much of yourself that you didn't know how to reach for the door. It seemed so far away. That deserves compassion, not another accusation. You don't have to keep placing yourself on trial for loving, for hoping, for trying, for caring, for staying, for grieving, or needing more than you received. You can tell the truth without blaming yourself for the whole story. You can say, I wish I had chosen myself sooner, without saying, something is wrong with me. You can say, I ignored what I felt, without saying, I deserved what happened. You can say, I'm learning, without turning healing into punishment. Because pain is already heavy. You don't have to add shame to it. And maybe today, the work is not to figure everything out. You don't have to have all the answers. Maybe today, the work is simply to notice the moment your mind starts blaming you again. Notice the sentence. Notice the spiral. Notice the old habit of making yourself responsible for someone else's lack of caring for you. And after you've noticed it, gently interrupt it. Say, wait a minute. That was not all mine to carry. See, I can learn without hating myself. Say, their choices are not my identity. Say, I was hurt, but I am not the problem. Let that be enough for today. You don't have to solve the whole story tonight. You don't have to understand every motive. You don't have to make peace with everything that happened before you are allowed to stop blaming yourself. You can begin with one small release, one breath, one softer thought, one moment where you choose not to attack yourself for being human. Because you were not the reason. You were the one trying to survive the reason. You were the one trying to make sense of pain that should have come with more care, more honesty, more tenderness, more truth. And now you're allowed to stop carrying what was never yours. Not because nothing happened. Not because it didn't hurt. I know it hurt. Not because you have all the answers. But because your heart was never meant to become the place where every unanswered question turned into self-blame. You are still worthy. Even with the questions. Even with the grief. Even with the parts of the story you still do not understand. You don't have to keep proving that you're lovable by blaming yourself for the ways you were not loved well. So, before you blame yourself again, pause. Put one hand over the part of you that keeps trying to explain everything. And tell yourself, I am allowed to stop making pain my identity. I am allowed to come back to myself. I am allowed to be gentle with the version of me who was just trying to survive. Because nothing is wrong with you. You're hurting. You're learning. You're returning. And you can stop carrying what was never yours. You were whole on arrival. You were complete when you got here. You were not missing a single thing. And you are still worthy of being found.